Hello everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another day of live training. It's very exciting to be here. It is Wednesday, 1 o'clock, thereabouts in California. We are here at fmtraining.tv where every day we do about an hour of FileMaker training, learning a new skill set, part of the FileMaker platform, where you get to learn how to make great FileMaker solutions. And maybe you already know how to make great FileMaker solutions. Well, maybe you need a little bit of a knocking the rust off, maybe learn something new that you didn't know before. Every time I go through and I learn and I work in the FileMaker platform, I'm always learning something new, even if it's something that I previously forgotten. And today is one of those kind of days for me. I'm sure it'll be that way for you. And either you will learn new things entirely, or they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So today's training session is on dynamic controls of your user interface, specifically window control. And it has to start with the concept of workflow in a solution. So if you have an organization, whether you're a consultant and you have a customer, or you have you're in-house and you're working for a department or someone within your own organization or some organization, somewhere there's a workflow. There's a business process that needs to be followed and completed. We call that workflow. And so how does step A go to step B? It's literally like if someone did a flow chart. Step A, step B, step D, that kind of thing. And so FileMaker is really great for that, but you need to have a set of tools, skills, and you have a great FileMaker. You have the FileMaker product, which is great, but once again, it's like going to a hardware store. There's lots of tools in there. Which tools are appropriate for the situation? And that's kind of the conversation today. So welcome to the training. Let's dive in. I'm going to go ahead and start with a sequence of things to go through. We're going to build it in real time, and then we have a sample file that you can take home. What I've done is I created this file right here called dynamic layout control. And the idea of this file is that I went through the relevant help sections in the FileMaker help, and I copy and pasted. This is out of Wikipedia right here. But all the rest of them have relative help, and then we're going to build it. But the help is in there, so after we build it, I give you the file. You have a little bit of on-screen instructions or on-screen explanation a little bit. So what is a modal window? So the idea of a modal window is like if you have a window and you pop a sub-window, like say we want to have a window pop up and we want to force people to deal with that window and not go anywhere else. So basically, modal window kind of wrestles control from everything else, and you have to deal with it before you go back to the original parent window. So it's like a child window. That's what a modal window is. And so why is this important? Well, as you build workflow, the idea is that you're going to, I'm just going to step out briefly here to starting point real quick. So if you're in a CRM or some sort of system, say you're on a contact screen right here, say there's a workflow like A to B to Z. So you're on this screen right here, but somehow you need to engage with the content a little bit, right? But you're really not sure how to present it on screen, because a lot of times you'll have content and then how you present it matters. How you present it so as to not confuse people, that matters. And FileMaker, a lot of people learn like one trick or two tricks, and there's actually like a dozen different ways of solving the problem. You got to pick the right trick. Now, every possible way of displaying data is not available on every client of FileMaker. Pro does pretty much everything, but it doesn't do a lot of animations that you get with Go. Go and WebDirect are basically single document interfaces, which means they only really show one layout at a time, whereas I could go into Pro, I could pop a new window and have it over here. I could actually even resize it, right? Have some sort of small like list view over here, and I could, let me go find all, so it looks like a list view. You could have something like this that was rolling, right? So then you have two windows, you bounce back and forth. Same with Mac and Windows, it works great either way. But you can't do this right here in WebDirect. You can't do this in Go. But there are things you can do. So let's kind of talk about it. And once again, I'm not going to talk about every caveat in every situation, because there's no way we could cover that in 1 hour. I'm going to try to drive through this. Yeah, so if you have questions about getting help with FileMaker, or you want some coaching, want to try out our free coaching program, something like that, I'm just going to tell Brian and everyone else that's commenting out there. Michael's in Ireland. Welcome, Michael. If you have questions, comments, you want to talk to us offline, send an email to support at RC Consulting, support at RC Consulting, because there is a team of tech support people there. They're actually the coaching team. So we have a coaching team, and they're all the junior and intermediate developers. And then once they promote above the coaching team, they become like basically senior developers. The senior developers don't really watch the tech support because most questions come in. At least a mid-level person can handle it. Every once in a while, we'll get a senior person involved that's really advanced question. But we get server questions in there. We get like, come help me questions. My server blew up. My dog ate my database. I lost my password. We get all sorts of stuff, and we're happy to answer those questions. So welcome, Michael. Welcome, Dennis. Welcome, Tom. Where the hell's IMOG at? Did that guy blow us off again? What is it with IMOG? Right? That guy is like the most non-reliable person to show up to free 1-hour training I've ever seen. Actually, I'm giving him a hard time, but he's very chatty here. We like that. So Ed is on our YouTube side. So once again, I'm over here watching this, so you can't really see it, but I turn the window. I have 2 windows here. I got my Twitch comments and I got my YouTube comments over here. And so that's how we keep track of the conversation. So Ed is on YouTube. He says it's looks like St. Louis, STL. I'm guessing that's St. Louis. And then Brian is in Louisville, and it's 83. Yes. And the thing with Kentucky, some of these places in the I don't want to say Mid-East or whatever, it's like Tennessee, Kentucky. It can get pretty humid there. I don't think it's humid yet, but it could be 90 degrees or say 25 C and a real high humidity, like 90%. It makes it just miserable. But I don't think it's that way yet this time of year yet. So let's talk about this. So I'm going to stay focused now on this. We have the idea of controlling the display. How do you control the data? And you have to think about the workflow. And the idea is that if you're on this screen right here and you need to add or edit some information, you need to decide whether you still want to display the information that's already on the screen, right? So for example, if you look over here, there's this follow-up function in Starting Point. And I'm doing a follow-up for this person right here, right? And so it would make sense that I would still see maybe their photo or their name or something. And so if I press next follow-up, it spawns this window right here, whatever this thing is, right? And we'll talk about what this is, okay? But I could have done this 5 different ways. I could have popped that into another side window. I could have popped it into a couple different scenarios. And so we want to talk about that. And really, you have to decide these things for yourself because, you know, do you want to see where the data kind of comes from? Because you can almost see over here, it kind of points to the follow-up. So it like helps reinforce that. But maybe that's not important. Maybe you have a bunch of information, it takes over the whole screen. Then what do you do? So let's go through our options. So once again, I've got a tool here in each layout. So we start at layout 1 and we're going to go to layout 2. We're going to build each item. So first thing is a popover. What is a popover? This is the FileMaker help here. If you want to kind of read it, once again, you will get the popover information. You'll get this sample file. But the idea that a popover, and once again, I'm going to do keyboard shortcuts to do, so my left hand or control alt option or command control L for layout mode. And then if you go over here to buttons right here, really there's a button and then there is a popover button. And so when people say popover, they really for short mean a popover button. So I can select that, I can draw it on screen, and what it does, it says you have a name for the popover. Let's call it info, right? And you can set script triggers on it to kind of come and go. You can decide how it's going to spawn. Now, this right here, if you can see, this is the way it spawns. So I can have it spawn to the bottom. I can spawn to the right. It will spawn to these different locations if FileMaker figures out it can fit in that spot. Notice if I want to go to the left, there's not much room over here. It won't spawn that way. So I hit left over here. So it does left if it can. And if it can, and then if it can't, it'll just go somewhere else. So just keep that in mind. You want to kind of test that. So I have it spawned down below. And so the idea is that as you're in this section over here, you can actually, this is literally part of the same layout. It's not, like ideally, I mean, in some places, I'd love to see this as a different layout object or from a different layout. But it doesn't work that way. This is actually things that are in here. I can put a text object in here, right? I can type some text in here, and the idea is that you could interact with names and fields, things like that, and then So I click it, it opens, I click out, it closes. And so this is a popover. Now, all these different things that we're going to cover have their little caveats. And to be honest with you, unless you use them every day, you tend to forget the caveats, like, can it be used in a portal? Can it be used in a portal that's on a slide control? It's one of those things you have to kind of play with, and eventually you'll memorize all the caveats. I forgot some of the caveats, and I remembered some of them. So partly for me, this is a chance to go back and kind of re-remember some of this stuff. Yeah, so that's the popover, really basic. It's basically a button. Now, you can have it so the button's not visible, right? So what if you made the button like invisible, right? You could say, go to the button, come over here, say there's no fill on it, there's no line on it, and you could take the text and so there now it's the button's not there, but the text is there. You could also make it so as you go over it, so that you notice that it flashed, right? So if I hover, that's called you're hovering over it. So you go into hover mode, and you can click on that. And you can say button, hover mode, let's make it invisible again, right? Makes sense? And so I go back to browse mode. And then so as I hover over, you don't see it. So then if you actually click on the word, it pops, right? Or you could make it totally invisible, right? You can also name the object. It's very important that almost everything we're doing today can be named and activated via script. So if I'm in layout mode, I can click on this here. I double click it. And I click on that, this object right here, I could actually say, and of course I'm winging this, I haven't done this in a while. So you go to the, this is the position panel. It's the right pane, so it's the right side of the layout, right pane, left panel of the pane is a position panel. If you get a name, call it popover. Now the thing is that two objects cannot have the same name on the same layout. Makes sense? So that's the rule. So if I have another popover, you could name them popover, or this could be the info popover. The other thing could be an invoice popover, whatever you wanted to do. And so if I go to browse mode, I could go to a script. I could say pop the popover. So it's a noun and a verb. And so we do that, and we say probably go to the object would probably trigger it. It should work. Once again, I'm completely doing this cold. I haven't probably done this specific thing in probably a year. So what I want to do is put a string in. I want to say, you could do it dynamically, but I could say pop over, and you hit OK. And assuming that name matches the other name over there, right? You hit OK. You hit OK. Oh, we done there? Save all. And so I go to scripts. I say pop the popover, it pops it open, right? So by naming the object and say go to that object, you can actually pop slide controls open, tab panels open, all sorts of stuff. So, and of course you can also, there's actually a close command that closes the popover. It's actually a specific close command. If you go over here to pop, close popover. So there's no open popover. The way you do an open is you tell it to go to the named object, right? And then you, of course, can run the specific command close a popover. Because really, I believe you can only have one popover going at a time. I don't think you can do a pop and a pop. And so when you say close popover, you don't have to tell it, let me see, close popover, right? So I can go here. I say close popover, then we put this this line over here. Can I just double click it, right? There it goes. And so notice there's no specifications here. So that just implies there's only one, right? If I did another popover over here, let me go to layout mode, and I did another popover with the button right here. This could be, number 2, right? And so there's a popover. It'll spawn right if it can. I'm going to go and close it. So it puts the button back on there. I'm going to go ahead and put the lines back on this one so we can see it. Solid line, fill, solid color. Okay, so I go browse 2. We have this popover. If I click this one, yeah, so only one popover at a time. You just can't pop everywhere, okay? Questions. What is this? Hell plug. I have no idea what he's referring to. This is a Richard. I am a Richard. This is a FileMaker training session. So, so I have no idea what hell plug is. So hell plug, welcome. And if we have questions, make sure you folks ask the question with context, like what is this? Like, yeah, let me know. Right? Listen, 30 years of doing this, I'm pretty damn good at reading minds, but that is a really open-ended question right there. Okay, user Mac Brian, you're back. No humidity today. Yeah, I kind of thought so. Kentucky, Tennessee, that's where the DevCon was supposed to be this year. In Tennessee, I think, right? I think it was Tennessee or Kentucky. It was Knoxville, I think, right? But that's on, I don't know. I'm guessing they're not going to do it, but they've definitely put it on hold for the moment, but they haven't canceled it outright yet for DevCon. So that's popovers. Any questions there? I'm going to move forward in the conversation. So I'm going to, so when you go to FileMaker and you go to layout mode, you don't always see the controls right here. And so what I do is I do right click with my mouse on my 3-button mouse. I say customize toolbar. They removed this because literally it was a marketing function that someone thought would be a really great idea, but I'm pretty sure the marketing people at FileMaker or at Claris don't use the product. And so they removed the layout flippy control, which I've only used for 28 or 29 years. And in FileMaker 18, so 17 or 18, they removed that as a default thing. And so I put it back up here so then I can flip through the layouts very rapidly without trying to go to this and then going through a long list, right? So that's popover. Now we're on the tab control. A lot of you have done tab controls before. I'm going to drag this over here. And David, you are there. So if you have any really relevant, immediate questions, you let us know. So we have the tab control. Boy, that's staticky, David. Very staticky on your, well, now it's gone. But yeah, your headset. Might be time to put an order in for a new headset. So tab controls are this real obvious thing like, you know, contact, info, and then you create it, and then you have invoicing, info, stuff like that. Create and, hang on, create, oh, there's no quote there. Create, and then we can do like, I don't know, I'll say in progress or some other status area like that. And so what we're doing is we're creating these tabs over here. And once again, you have these tabs and different information can be in these tabs. This is very basic. And so there's some additional information here on it. The people frequently get confused between slide controls and tab controls. They almost operate almost identically. The difference between the two items, and the slide control is kind of this next one. I'm going to go to layout mode and I'll do the slide control. Is that the slide controls, you know, I remember when a new feature comes out, as long as I click and hold on I can do tab or slide control. When a feature comes out, frequently FileMaker or FileMaker developers will, they'll use something and they'll overuse it because it's cool and it's fun to play with, but it makes no sense. And I ran into this. I had some people, I remember with Starting Point, they said, let's change all the tab controls to slide controls. And I was like, do you know what you just said? And they hadn't thought about it. They just said it. And I was like laughing because here's the thing with slide control. So this panel section here, as I can navigate, these buttons down here can be resized or turned totally off. So if you don't have those, there's no way of actually controlling it on Mac or Windows. On Go, you can swipe it. So you can swipe the panels, which is kind of cool. But so if you look at this and I remove these buttons, what's the difference between this and the tab control? Right? The only difference is that one is labeled with the information at the top and one is not. And so the question is, if you have a slide situation, right? You have a slide situation and you don't want people to understand, you want people to understand what's in there, or you don't want to tell them what's in there. If you want it to be a secret, you use this. Or if it's so obvious, like a lot of times people see a photo thing and they'll like swipe the photos and it's kind of they understand it. You don't have to teach them that. But like if you had contact information here and invoicing in another section and project, how would you know? So slides are not a replacement for tabs. They are just a different kind of tab. And FileMaker really treats them differently. And additionally, once again, consistent with the last popover conversation, these objects can be individually named. So each of these tabs and each of the slides can be named. Slide 1, Slide 2, Slide 3, whatever you want to do. Then you can use that go to object to activate it and bring it forward. Michael had a question. Can one put a related portal into a popover? You can, but you can't. there's actually, it's in the, I read this in here the other day because you can try to go too far with it. You can't put a popover in a portal that's in a popover or something. It's like when you try to double stack a portal, like a portal within a portal is really not a functional thing. And you really can, you really have the same thing. You really run into the same situation where you can't overstack them, and you have to play with it, right? For example, if you put a slide control, you can't really put a slide control in a portal, right? The problem we had with the slide control in the portal was that there was a bug with FileMaker on that. We were trying to do that the other day. We were trying to put a slide control in a portal, and it seems to me you could do it, but when you would change it, you would end up changing all of them. So I think it ends up not allowing it to stack that way. But once again, you have to play with these things. Portals are really, in the world of FileMaker, very complicated objects. Under the hood, that what makes it go is very complicated. So how you interact with them, you have to play with it, find what works, find what doesn't work. But there was it was an interesting challenge I had because I was trying to, because Dick Hunter, so here was the problem I ran into, right? So, and I called Nick, I said, you know, the lean design guy, I said, hey, what the hell, why am I stupid? Because once upon a time, this kind of worked. The problem was is I wanted to do a master. So if you come over here, this interface right here is in the basic mode. But I wanted to have a master detail portal over here, so I went to Home, I went to Preferences, and I went to the developer settings, and I set, or is it, this is 7, it should be in here. Calendar, navigation. So we go to the advanced settings right here. So then I go back to dashboard, I go to contacts. Now this is a portal over here on the side. Now this little rounded deal here, that is a total hack, like the ultra hack. This, like, they should call it the Nick Hunter hack from hell. That is a slide control where the image is stuck in there, and what they do is they render a round display area in the middle of slide control, and because the way it layers, it ends up rounding up and chopping off that container. That's a square picture in there. And so I was like, well, that's really cool. So can I take all the round pictures and put them over here? And the rub is that you could put the container over here, but as soon as you put the slide control in there, it won't allow it to attach and go into the object. It prevents it, because what would happen, in my situation, would be fine, but FileMaker had a problem with, if you flipped one slide control on one portal item, then all the portal items would follow. Because really, in a portal, FileMaker kind of replicates the behavior, right? And so if you flipped one, it would flip all of them. That was kind of bizarre behavior, I think, in previous version, 15 or 16, wherever it was at. So they kind of removed it. So if you try to stack it, my biggest problem is I was trying to put a slide into the portal, and it wouldn't go. It would, like, not connect, right? So that's where you have to kind of play with stuff and then understand that, you know, your hacks are limited, right? So then there's Christian over there saying the slide port is no go. Yeah, and once again, the reason it doesn't is it's not, if you only had one slide, it's not a problem. And over here, this is just one slide. The problem is that people actually have multiple slides and they want to switch between them. And I think the same is for a tab control. I don't think you can put a tab control in the portal for the same reason. Because remember, these two items are nearly, a tab control and a slide control are almost identical. The difference is these little items here and the fact that you're not seeing the name up here. So how do you select one or the other? It's whether you want to expose the information in there or not. That's the decision making you have on that. So good. So K Wolf 69 is here. K Wolf, actually he goes by K Wolf some places. Sometimes it's K Wolf Paw. I don't know what 66 is. You weren't born in 66. I was born in 71, and you're younger than I am, so I don't know what that is. Anyway, people always put like the year or their age or something like that. So, okay, so moving along. So let's talk about this. It's a little more interesting. So window. So before, remember, we had a window and we popped another window over here. So understand, if I go back to popovers, these are fully compatible with all the clients. FileMaker built these for, they work with Go, Pro, and WebDirect. The tab controls and slide controls work with Go, Pro, and WebDirect. Okay, so they're pretty, so these first items are completely compatible here. You get over here to the windows, and remember about windows with Go. We talked about Go. I can fire it up here real quick. I'll go over here and pop it. Yeah, quit your whining. It's being a whiny thing. Okay, get rid of that. Close that. Save file, new movie. And then that's me. Hello. And then I'm going to switch over here to the iPad. And so this is the iPad. There we go. And so what is happening is if I come over here to this starting point right here, and I'm going to go into, say, for example, contacts right here, okay? And I want to do, is the follow-up even in here? Is that right there? So that is, I'm not sure. Oh, I think that may be a URL right there, or a card style window. I have to go back and play with it. Let me see, where was that feature at? It was the docs. That's a popover. So you can see with the little edge right there, the little arrow thing right there, it's almost certainly a popover. So the popovers work great here, but understand that if I want to pop a new window, I click the section up here at the top with my finger, and then it allows me to spawn a new window. So if I say, let's just duplicate the window, and I go to list view, once again, and I can click over here. How many records do I have? Hello? Only have one record, okay. So notice that I can't see both layouts at the same time. It's a single document interface, okay? So FileMaker had this really great capability, and so to flip windows, I can script it to flip back and forth, right? But you only see one at a time. WebDirect has the same issue. So the popovers were FileMaker's effort to bring some additional flexibility in here so you can see really another source of information without, because on the same window. And so the additional interesting thing was that that if you run a window command, like you say you pop a new window, it just spawns this extra. You have this mode right here in FileMaker Go where you can kind of see what windows you have stacked in here. To be clear, you can't see this in WebDirect. It's there. You cannot see it. So in your mind, as a developer, you have to keep this keep track of this. And more specifically, what you need to do is probably name the windows. Normally, people don't really worry about naming the windows, but if you name the windows, then you can say, bring up window A or bring up window B. Most people just spawn a window. The title of the window is oops, hang on. Where did I go? I'm not here. I'm sorry. So this right here, you don't see this in WebDirect. It's virtualized, right? You can see it here, right? And notice the title at the top, you can't really, it's hard for me to move my mouse over here. That's the title. Now you can rename it. It tells you the server it's coming off of and the name of the file, but you could rename that to Dog and Fred and 123. If you name it, then you can call it. So FileMaker Pro has multiple windows. You can see them. FileMaker Go has multiple windows, but you can't see them at one time. You only see one at a time, but you can come here and kind of get an idea of how many you have open and kind of jump around manually. If you can get to that option, you have to press that option right there at the top with a little down arrow, right? That's how you do that. So what's interesting about this, so in WebDirect, it's even more restrictive. Those windows are there, and you have to know that they're there. And if you end up closing all the windows, then you close out of the solution. Like, it would make sense. But you have to keep them named ideally so you can call them. And so FileMaker had this command, or Claris, FileMaker at the time, had this command. We go to script workspace, and we would say, pop a, that's popping a card, but really a card is a kind of window. And so you have all these windows. And for a long time, there were only these three kinds of windows. Document, which is basically another kind of, it's like an identical window to what we have right now for the most part. And there's some window options here. You can turn things on and off. And then you could have a floating window. The floating window is kind of modal. Like, notice that on this broadcast right now, I am in this window right here. See this window? That's a floating window. It stays on top of other things. That's a floating window. You can do that in FileMaker, okay? If you come to my app over here, I've specified that it is floating, okay? So the term floating window is a industry standard term. And of course, then you could have a dialog window, which is modal. Once again, at the beginning, we discussed a modal window is one that you're locked down. You can't do anything else until you release that window, okay? And so every time you pop one of these three things in Go or WebDirect, it spawns a completely new window. And once again, that's just not sufficiently modern. So FileMaker made the card style window, and what it allows you to do is the card style window pops, but it's displaying in a generally, as a general rule, there's always hacks around stuff, but as a general rule, it's going to show the big window on the back side. Then it's going to show a subsection somewhere in the middle, probably, of this other window. And the contents of that window comes from a second layout. So card style windows allow you to, with FileMaker Go, have two layouts displayed at the same time. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll show that to you real quick. I'm going to say open a card. I create a layout over here called layout for window over here. And I can dim the parent around the side, and I can say close. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close that out, save all the changes, go back to browse mode over here. I'm going to go ahead and close that there. And I'm going to go and run this, and I say pop a card. And so that is a layout, a separate layout. Now, I told it to dim out the other area, so that's what it's doing. And so I can come over here and interact with this layout. And this could be a totally, really an unrelated section. I mean, this table here could be unrelated to the base table. I mean, there's no relational constraints here. It's just pop this, and you can interact with it, right? And so that's how that works. And if you click over here, I'm clicking over here. It doesn't click out. You can hit the escape key, I think. Maybe I turned that off. There was a checkbox in the upper corner. You can also just give it the close window command. If you run a script step called close window, it closes that window. So if you go back to script workspace, we take a look. It's a little bit big here. Let me make this smaller. It's a little bit big. So we come back over here and look at our options. Dim parent and allow the close, right? So normally you would do that. So then this would force people to complete a process. Now I don't have a process in here, so I don't know what it'll do. So it didn't dim, but now I have a process, and then if I hit Command W, can I close it? No. If I hit escape, can I close it? So basically I have screwed myself. I have kind of locked myself out. It's modal, right? So base layout, like a parent layout, this is the child window, which is actually another layout. And I've managed to hose myself, so I need to, this is a script step called close window. All it is a close window. So it closes the current frontmost window. Now you could tell it to, if you knew the name of a window, you could say close window A, B, or C, right? So you can specify that. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Come over here, I'm stuck. I'm going to say close window, and it releases it and removes it. So that's the idea. So ideally in a non-modal situation, what you're going to do is you'd pop, in fact, what you should do is, so that's pop a card. I'm just going to duplicate it. I'll say pop a, what do I want to call that? Pop, we could try the dialogue or pop document. Document's just another window. And you can play with these and see what they do. Each one of them has a little bit different behavior. So I pop this one. We change the style to be a document window or floating. That would actually be fun, a floating window. So we could call it floating. Okay, pop floating window. Okay, browse mode. Save, close, close, close. So we could be over here. We could say pop the floating window. So it popped it right over the top, and it did. So you'd run a command to like resize it down, right? And so notice the card style window. So basically, what's it doing? Oh, it's modal, right? And can I close it? So it's a floating window. So if I come over here and I'm working over here, say I'm changing layouts and stuff over here, notice I'm behind it and it's forcing it to float above, right? But if I tell it to close, it closes it, right? So that's the floating window once again. So you can play with all these. So what's relevant today? So card style windows work great on everything except WebDirect. In FileMaker 19, they're supposed to add the card style windows to WebDirect. So WebDirect, it's been like a hugely requested item for a very long time. In my understanding, they're supposed to add that. So we'll see if they actually get that done. And that would be the new version of FileMaker. So the idea is to give you popovers and card style windows in your WebDirect interface, which is really great because then that helps eliminate this issue where you really can't see two windows, right? Like a, because a lot of times I'll have a solution, I'll stack 2 or 3 windows and be working on a problem. So anyway, interesting stuff. So questions. Random number. Okay, wow. It's really quiet today. Everyone is either dead or they're quiet. Yeah, it's Elzo. I lose track of that, right? So yeah, Top Cat's there, but then Elzo is EFG52, and he's in Brazil. How's the weather in Brazil? Thought I'd ask, since we're asking people that today. Let us know. So basically then the idea is the modal window is a card style window, which kind of forces things to happen. And there are some interesting hacks and things that you can do. And so with some of these, like card style windows offers you some hacks. And then yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we did the beautiful windows. And this is a demo of a slide control hack. So this is where you do another, so once again, you're like, wow, it's another way of displaying additional information. And this is a slide control that should work on, slide controls work on WebDirect, although I don't know that they animate. In fact, I'm pretty sure they don't animate. So Go, they animate. Pro, they animate. I don't think that will animate in, it just appears, right, on the browser. So once again, a browser, the interface of a browser will never be as good as the interface on FileMaker. But the browser interface, the browsers are much more prolific than copies of FileMaker Pro. So, right, what are you going to do? But there's no, the animation's good in Go. So, yeah, so the beautiful menus exercise is pretty interesting. What happens is that if you come over here, it's the guys at, if you do a search for Digital Fusion FileMaker Beautiful Windows, you'll end up with this consultancy in Australia. These guys are really, really good. They're nice people. I've worked with them bits and pieces over the years. This is by Daniel Wood. I don't know actually who wrote the application, but this is this little slide control where you could slide out. It's basically a slide control, and it's 3 panels in the slide control. The first panel and the last panel are invisible. There's nothing to the slide control, but the middle one is that thing there. So it's the slide control is always on screen, but it's invisible. And then if you hit the button, that button tells it to go to the second slide control, and it looks like it's sliding on the window. It's not sliding the window. It's always been there, but it's an optical illusion is what it is. It's actually quite cool. That's that. So then we got another question here. In the interest of keeping a lean design, one should carefully select the window types to use in an app versus the other same design. Is it correct? I don't think so. No, you use the right tool for the job. You're saying that in the so let me rephrase this statement for you, Elzo, and see if this sounds good to you. In the interest of keeping a lean design, one should carefully pick a single window type to use, like a hammer. So the only tool you have in your inventory is a hammer, and then from there on, everything else you do around the house, you're going to use a hammer on. Never mind it, a screwdriver might be a better tool for you. So okay, so if you had a solution like Starting Point, for example, and so let's talk about, it's not even lean design so much, it's just most like, it's user interface, user versus user experience, okay? User experience is how people experience your application and whether they feel good about the application, whether they understand it, they feel like they're being positive and productive and they understand what's happening. You can have a beautiful interface that no one can use because it sucks. Even Nick has built those for me before, and I had to go back to him and say, hey, this is beautiful, but it makes no sense. The user experience, the user interface is high, user experience is low. So if I come over here to contacts, and let's say that I have, like this section here, find by barcode. So that is a dialog window right here, okay? And then right over here, this is a QuickBooks check, which we don't need. But then you have this one right here. So we're mixing the design right here, okay? And you could technically, for consistency, I've never really thought about that, but all the things along here, unless there's a really good reason to have them different benefits, right? Because understand that each of these little methods of controlling blocks UI, they have different caveats, like what kind of, like some of this stuff doesn't even work in WebDirect, right, at all. So, you know, if it's a card or a popover, starting with FileMaker 19, it works everywhere, okay? So that's really great. So you could want to you want to mostly focus on those. Does that make sense? And so for user, but as long, my number one thing is user experience. User experience before user interface. Now people look at something and they say, oh, that's pretty, I want to buy it. So maybe, you know, it's like the guys dating, you know, or girls and guys dating when they're in high school or college or whatever, right? The user experience is what happens on the date after you get to know the person. The user interface is what you see at 20 feet going, wow, that's really pretty. I should go meet that person, right? So the user interface is how people come closer to look at it because they're interested, because it doesn't look like a person hasn't showered in a month and they haven't changed their clothes in 6 months, right? And so, you know, so that's the user interface, but the user experience is what happens beneath the skin of the interface. Does it really help you? Does it educate you? Does it make sense, right? Do you get lost easily, right? So I've actually seen beautiful interfaces that were just beyond useless, right? So that can happen. So you might want some consistency along the way. That's a really good question. Is there in a random number generator you can set the, okay, what happened here? So you guys are talking about random numbers. That's way off topic. Hi, FM Bob. How about the size of the slide to make the cool hamburger? Okay, so I didn't build it, Bob. I would recommend that if you want to play with it, you go over here and you download the free sample file from the guys at the Digital Fusion guys, right? But if you go to layout mode, it's pretty simple. There is a slide. It's always there. And when I go to browse mode, you're going to see slide number 1. If I double click over here, there's slide number 1, slide number 2, slide number 3. So slide 1 and slide 3 are totally transparent. So when you go to browse mode, it is always, always, always there. The slide is there. You just can't see it because it's transparent. You press this button, it calls the name of the middle slide. That's all it does, basically. It calls the name of the middle slide because it has a name, and we covered that earlier in today's session, and pops it out. There you go. Pretty cool stuff. So go get their file. They did a great job with that. So in the number, okay, so we're way off topic. I've got a couple minutes here. We'll just go ahead and take a swing at this. Maybe this is another one of my staff trying to blow me up. We'll see what happens. Let's see. In the number random generator, can you, okay, it's jumping around. Can you set the value of an integer rather than a decimal greater than 1? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do whatever you want with a random number generator. There are some custom functions. Listen, the random number generator in FileMaker is a little archaic because I always looking for random numbers that are whole numbers. There are custom functions, like if you go to Brian, if you search Brian Dunning custom function, and then you go to that site, they have a huge inventory of free custom functions, and one of which is a random number generator. It allows you to specify the range, whole numbers, things like that. It just takes the random number function in FileMaker, and it makes it a little bit more understandable for normal humans. Because the random number generator right now, it generates decimal numbers, right? Below 0, I think. So pretty cool. Yeah, to avoid fruit salad in the Windows same type app. Yeah, you got to look at that. You got to look at the design limitations. This is back to Elzo in Brazil. He's saying, you know, I'm trying to avoid fruit salad in the app. Well, you need to, don't mix things unnecessarily just because you're bored. Try to stay consistent with it. But for the most part, popovers and card style windows are the preferred mode. This right here is a dialogue in a script. This is the original, very original thing you could do before all this other stuff happened, was this pop a custom dialogue, and there's a text and you can put some information in here. And so that's another way of doing it. You probably could have done it with a popover, but when we were writing, the easiest thing to do in life is to pop this in a script. Because if you do a card style window, you actually have to build another layout to drive it. But maybe that's what you need, because this right here is super limited. You can do a little paragraph here and up to 3 fields, but you can't customize how long it is. You can't customize how it looks. A custom dialogue is super limited. So in this case with the barcode stuff, not a lot of people use the barcode. So as a result, it's you know, it was less of an issue at the time. So, other question, yesterday's session, what do you think of dumping the word relationship and changing it to connection instead? Michael's, that's a good question about, the problem is that some terms are kind of industry specific. For example, FileMaker at its core builds databases, and it's a relational database. And so sometimes trying to explain to people that it's a relational database is easier than trying to, you know, because you're trying to have a conversation with an IT person. So say some group at some company says, hey, we want to use FileMaker because we really love it. And so they go to their IT guys, and IT guy says, well, you're not going to install anything unless we give you permission to install it. So then you have to have a conversation with the IT guy that says, hey, here's FileMaker. It comes in peace. It means you no harm. You should install it. What is it? Oh, it's a database, okay? Okay, here it comes. You know it's coming. Oh, what kind of database? Well, it's a database with connections. They won't know what that is. If you say it's a relational database, they'll go, oh, we understand what that is because SQL's that way and Oracle's that way. So I understand from a training standpoint, but in terms, there's some words that we just explain to people. Like FileMaker every once in a while reinvents a word like the word server and host. They refuse to use the word server. They love the word host, which is really goofy because the modern understanding of what a host is because it's so prolific, is an Airbnb person who puts their house or apartment up or whatever. That's a host. That's the most prolific use of the word host on the internet right now by far. I'm pretty positive. And so when people say, hey, it's a host, people are like, so you've built something and you're sharing it with other people? Kind of, yeah, except that you can't have a server and share it with other people because that's against the rules of FileMaker. It's just, yeah. People do things, they don't think about the implications for training. So Michael is keying on the fact that training is a whole world, especially when you're bringing brand new people, but you also train existing people. And if you say, hey, if you have a FileMaker server, that's really great. We have a dying cat in the background. So if you actually go to a FileMaker server and you set stuff up, then you actually can, you're sharing it, but you can't share it with other people, right? So is it really a host? Do you share with other people? No, it's your dedicated server. So once again, reminder that this training has been sponsored by fmtraining.tv. If you want to support this channel, you want to do yourself a favor, go buy the training. You can get this training at a discount. We offer a coupon, $50 off, both the complete bundle here and then the video only bundle here. So you can get these $50 off each one if you want. This comes with a full copy of FileMaker Pro, and it's on a subscription. So if you buy it now, it's good for a whole year. It comes with some other additional tools, which are great that otherwise you'd have to pay for. This one right here is only the training. It's only the training. And so it comes with all the video training for 1 year, and you can get that for $149. This one over here you can get for $249. This is how you support the channel, how you keep us going, and make sure that we bring you great content every day. So I'm Richard Carlton. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and we will catch you tomorrow.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him. Again, he makes the grab.